Are we live now?
Yes, we're
Is
live
it a go now?
We're a go now.
All right. We've had some technical difficulties, but we're back on air. Thank you so very much for joining us.
Let's go. So, Arthur, we have to start over.
Yes.
Good night to everybody. What I think a lot of the viewers want to know, because they are of the understanding you've been disqualified, so a lot of them would like to know what is the way forward and what is your feeling or sentiment on this disqualification.
Okay, I'm nonplussed. I want my supporters and viewers to understand that this is still yet another step in the process. A disqualification at the executive is not the end. By no means. I seek to champion the cause of our people in Belmopan because I firmly believe that I can make a difference in this constituency that has been held hostage by a very vindictive and tyrannical era representative who has totally abandoned and neglected the people of Belmopan. John Saldiva has abdicated his role as era representative. He no longer holds the values and principles necessary to be a leader in this community. As a result of that, Marissa, and viewers, I want to make it abundantly clear that I believe that an error has been made by the executive, one that may require legal resolution. I will go more in depth into that, Marissa, as we go along, but suffice it to say, I am here to answer the questions, all the questions, as candidly and as honestly as they can be answered. I believe it is high time for politicians and persons who seek political office to make themselves available in a more direct way to those they seek to represent. My life is an open book. I have nothing to hide. Thank you.
So one of your viewers is asking, how do you plan to move forward based on the fact that you're disqualified from running on a PUP ticket? So what's going to happen now that that has happened? Will you go to court? What is your way forward?
Well, yes, I will be seeking an order of mandamus because the process that started back on April 17th, 2018 has been marred with bias and prejudice. As a result of that, I believe that there is a need to have the court look at these things, especially as it relates to the constitution of the PUP. You see, as a Belizean and as a Belmopanese, this is the seat of parliament. And if we don't stand up for democracy in Belmopan, where else in Belize can we expect for democracy to be championed? As a result of this, Marissa, here's the situation. It is my fear that if I don't stand, then we are saying to the Belizean public that those who are the custodians and trustees of the People's United Party are not adhering to its constitution, and we cannot be sure that they will adhere to the constitution of Belize should they be given the mantle of power over the nation. So I have to, by virtue of principle, stand up for the constitutional right that I have as a member of the party and for my right as a Belizean, so that no other Belizean and no other member of the PUP could be treated the way that I am being treated now, unfairly and with disregard.
Somebody is saying that they think that you and Patrick are going to have a good fight if you plan on continuing, even though the party doesn't want to. Do you feel that it's worth it?
Well, my fight is not with Patrick Andrews. I have no fight with Patrick Andrews. My goal and objective is to unseat John Saldiva. and it's going to happen in Belmopan in the upcoming election. Now, I do prefer to run under a PUP banner. I am a PUP, have been a PUP since the age of 7, when I was fortunate enough to have a conversation one-on-one with the father of the nation on the sidewalk between Kiskadee Avenue and Garza Avenue. I became officially a member in 1989 as a campaigner for Sam Waite in Belmopan. And I have never abdicated, abandoned, or betrayed the People's United Party or the country of Belize, for that matter. In fact, I believe that I have done great service to both country and party in my time as a PUP.
Somebody's asking about the candidates in Albert. How do you feel about the candidates that are vying in Albert, and what is your take on that?
My take, Marissa, is that we are a democracy and we ought to act democratic. If there are candidates seeking positions in our party, I believe that it is the right of the people to decide. Let the people decide.
Arik Arzu is asking if you'll just give in, or what or how are you going to take it on?
Well, Mr. Arzu, let me be clear. It is not in my DNA to give in or give up. That's not my makeup. I fight. That's what I do.
Somebody said, Ms. Shan Sharzi says, if you not run for PUP, PUP will never win the Belmopan. That's good night. That's her take on that. Ms. Kiros is saying that although she feels that Mr. Andrews would have defeated you, that she feels that you are both being taken advantage of, I guess.
Well, let me put it this way. I don't believe that I'm being taken advantage of. You can only be taken advantage of if you allow yourself to be. There are principles that govern the People's United Party. Those principles are constitutionally enshrined. Where those principles are not being followed, there is redress. I have sought in every step of the way to go to the next step for redress. I have now come to the end of the road internally, and now I must seek redress externally, and that's where I'm going with this.
Well, the result says democracy is about allowing the people to choose. Do you feel that the PUP is not acting very democratic with what they're doing?
Well, I believe in law there's a term res ipsa loquitur. The facts speak for itself. We can see it. It's clear. There is no need for interpretation when it is so blatant to be seen.
Why do you think they don't want to have a convention, Otto? That's Ms. Kiros is asking you that.
Let's face the facts. John Saldiva is a very vulnerable and compromised candidate in Belmopan. He is weak, but the United Democratic Party is between a rock and a hard place when it comes to finding a leader and an heir to Dean Barrow. We know that of the two, John Saldiva and Patrick Farber, well, Mr. Farber has had a very rocky few months, and it seems that his hold on the leadership in terms of what was being dubbed as his position to take has now been totally lost. So the only other option is John Saldiva. It appears to me that there may be some kind of an arrangement to put the weakest candidate for the PUP forward in an effort to ensure that John Saldiva wins the seat. it's almost as if the People's United Party has left the field. We have abdicated our role as opposition and we have been replaced by an entity that we can call UDP Light. Instead of blue and white, I think it's the pink and white that is being flown at number 3 Queen Street at this time.
Mellow Crow is saying, will you continue to help people from Belmopan, or because your application was denied, will you leave the people on ice?
I have been helping people all my life. I continue to help people without fanfare. And the commitments I have made, I will continue. As I said, what happened today in no way changes my position as a champion for the cause of the people of Belmopan and all its 6 communities. We are presently seeking to deliver electricity supply to the people of La Rivera. We are in the process of accumulating wires, number 2 and number 4 triplex wires to go underground to provide 35 families with electricity for the first time. We are ensuring that we can push forward for land in Rivera. We push forward for land in Mayamopan, in Salvapan. We are seeking to ensure that we can secure a house, 3 acres in Las Flores for a new school site. And these things go on. My candidacy is not going to be determined by the People's United Party custodians in the executive. My candidacy is my right, and I will exercise that right regardless of who seeks to deny me. As long as I breathe, I am running.
Mr. Wade says John Briceño and his crew think they win already. They don't remember when they were undermining the previous leader, but time longer than rope. He says he's taking advice from a criminal who has embarrassed the entire country, has finally destroyed our hope in Belmopan. Because a vote for Oscar Mira is a vote for Moises Tal. That's why we need a convention. Miss Jacqueline Burns is online. She's watching.
Welcome, Jacqueline. I look forward to having your support.
What my question to you, Otta, is if you have been disqualified from running and you go to court and for whatever reason that is not successful, do you still see a future in running for Belmopan?
I do, and again, I will not get ahead of myself. Throughout this process, I knew, from the inception, I knew it was going to be a challenge. I never expected to be given a primrose path to candidacy. But let me be clear about one thing. I am not suspended, have never been suspended for the length of time that they have said I was suspended for. There is only one resolution, and I will produce that resolution for the viewing public to see and to understand. The resolution came as a result of quote-unquote public allegations made against me by a member of the party. A member of the party with whom I have had a very colorful past. You see, I won't go into any of these personal issues because they are very petty, and I'm not a petty person. I'm here about the people's business, and the people's business is very serious in Belmopan because the capital has seen itself fall from its position as a leading community in Belize to one where there is rampant and widespread unemployment, where there is lack of access to health care in many of its communities, where children are not being given the ability to access education. We have a lot of problems, not least among which is the growing rise in gang violence and crime across the city. So I don't delve and dwell on petty issues. like personalities and who like me or who don't like me. I'm not here to run a popularity contest. I'm here to get a job done, and a job for the people. So, that said, the only resolution that exists in the People's United Party in respect of my candidacy is the one that I'm holding up right now, Marissa. And it reads, Resolution on decision of the National Executive to remove Arthur Saldiva as a member of the National Executive and the elected standard bearer for the Belize Royal North constituency. Now, it's a very specific resolution to remove, not to suspend. So in 2014, after I had won a constituency convention in the Royal North constituency, based on the allegation of a client who did not want to pay me, the party, through certain members, introduced a resolution to remove me. Now, I believe from what I've read in the questions that came before, Marissa, one of the persons who expressed interest asked about the COE money. There's no such thing as COE money. The monies that were paid to me at Central Bank, June 12th, 10:30 p.m., were part payment of my fees. It amounted to some $806,000. That's the exact figure. Part of that money was used to pay debts that Michael COE had accrued prior to his death. It took a week, one whole week, from the 12th of June to the 19th of June, for Melanie COE to come back to me in the personage of a letter from Courtney and COE LLP to say that she wanted what she had already paid. But there is a little explanation to be had about how this came about and why that gap took place. About the 14th of June or 15th thereabouts, 2014, Miss COE came back wanting me to purchase a house on her behalf with $200,000 out of the money that she had paid me. I told Melanie, listen, I am not your man. I have a family to maintain, and certainly we have more monies to collect. So use what you have to pay for that house, and you will be able to collect from the other monies that the income tax department had held. Income tax had held about $3 million more of the $6.5 million that had originally been taken from them. So I didn't see any need for me to take monies out of what was paid to me to give to them after 6 years fighting 5 cases on their behalf. It is also telling that Ms. COE has never mentioned anything about this situation. She has hidden behind Courtney and COE, and Courtney and COE has hidden behind her. So it's a very convenient shell game that has been played. But no truth to anything of the sort that I took anything from her. In fact, there was nothing criminal about what took place. The court has agreed with that. In fact, she understands and agrees with that as well. This is the reason why this matter was settled immediately upon it coming to the public. But look at this again for what it really is. Attorneys don't normally take other attorneys to task publicly about any issue that is being disputed. There is normally a protocol of writing to a colleague addressing a situation that may be problematic. That was never extended me. The question is why? Why was that not extended to me in this particular regard? Because this was something that was intended to be used as a sword of Damocles to hang over my head. But again, I am not running from it. Never did, never will. I would want the viewing public to ask Melanie COE whether or not she ever had the intention to pay. Because that's the bottom line. And I don't think that anybody in Belize would work 6 years for an employer without expecting to be paid. So let's get that clear.
Moises so says, if there is going to be a policy to disqualify persons based on public allegations, then let me say that I don't believe that we should have the current cabinet nor an opposition, because there has been so many public allegations, past, present, and unless those allegations are proven, then it's simply gossip. Somebody asked, what were reasons given for disqualification?
It goes back to this Melanie Kawhi situation, something that occurred 4 years ago and for which I had already been punished for. You see, this resolution in 2014 refers to the public allegations made in relation to the Kawhi situation. And now in 2018, the executive or the leader of the party is coming back again with Melanie Kawhi. Is it that Melanie Kawhi is the most important Belizean citizen? More important than all the voters of Belmopan? More important than all the voters of Belize Rural North? More important than the voters of Belize City? By what criteria has she assumed such importance in the People's United Party? When in truth and in fact, we could remember what the case was all about. And let me put this out here right now. When the Kawhi case was going on, Courtney and Kawhi's law firm was being sought to represent them in the criminal case. They refused that offering. They did not want to touch that case with a 10-foot pole. In fact, after it was all said and done, of the 4 attorneys that started out with the case, I was left alone for 2 years, battling that case on my own for 2 years. So when you talk about money paid, it all comes back to me. But out of the monies that I was paid, I had to pay other attorneys as well. None of their names are being brought up, and I will not bring out their names because it wouldn't be fair to them. But the truth of the matter is, the money didn't all come to me.
Pedro Cruz is saying, hey, the party leader has said you are not a member of the PUP. Why are you going up the canoe, up the river in a canoe without a paddle? Why are you still trying to wave the banner for the PUP? What is your next step to run independent? Because you can't run in a convention and you have been thrown under the bus.
Well, there's no bus. Again, as I said, the party leader at that time of the statement he made some weeks ago or months ago was operating under a misconception. He was not fully apprised of the reality of the situation. Now, what has occurred today is a horse of a different color. It is no longer a misconception, but he has exhibited great bias, and one that needs to be redressed in the courts of law.
Patrick Andrews is asking, will you join in the PUP convention on July 1st, my brother? Let's not have Johnny have his way.
Well, I'm saying here right now, I will do whatever it takes to contest the PUP convention. And if that means that the convention has to be halted and not held on July 1st, that's what's going to happen.
Moises Sol says, power to the people. What the people want, the people get. Should they seriously want a convention, then they should start writing a letter to the party and or start a position and gather signatures. Did you try that option? Let the people choose, let the people choose, let the people choose?
Yes, we have gathered signatures on a petition We are well over 900 signatures, which is a tally more than 3 times the amount that one of the candidates got in the last convention, and certainly more than the leading candidate got in the last convention. And we should be well over 1,000 signatures by the end of this week.
Paul Wade says, "No, my people of Belmopan, if Johnny is taking advice from criminals, then he's planning to be part of that process, because we will not be moved." I think what everybody's sentiment is that you're fighting a losing battle. That's their sentiment. They feel like, while so many people are with you, with the party against you, they're not sure how you will come out on top. Can you share some of your positive insights to this fight?
Oh, certainly. I am no stranger to fighting the odds. Just go back into the archives, the news archives. It was 30 against 1 when Marcus Pat was being advanced to become leader of the People's United Party. Many people may not remember that, it's so long ago. But I was the one to stand up, the one to say, let's have a convention, a leadership convention. Now, this may be one of the reasons why I'm here in this position, because I don't just go along to get along. There are certain principles that guide me, and those principles are always steeped in an understanding that our people require sound, sober representation. We don't require pushovers, sheep, or lackeys. I will never be a lackey. I will never be sheep. I'm from Belmopan. This is the city that produces free and independent thinkers and people who understand their convictions and stand by them. I'm a product of this city.
Somebody says Ella says we need to hear from the PUP executive in Belmopan. Will they allow this unfair act to take place? Will they resign as a show of discontent and solidarity to the process of democracy? What is your take on that?
Well, I believe they should. I believe that any George Price loving People's United Party,
they're not seeing, but he's on.
I believe that any George Price loving, freedom and democratic loving People's United Party supporter in Belmopan should react and protest this decision of the executive. We're gone. We are being censored by the internet.
I think so. What is the process after being disqualified by the national executive? Big Hat Banner is asking.
As I've said, the disqualification is null and void. It is of no import. The court will attest to that, because the process of bringing it about is flawed. The party, well, the trustees of the party, not the party, the trustees of the party that vis-a-vis the executive have basically leaned on their own misunderstanding in relation to a resolution that was passed that speaks nothing of a suspension but only ends in a conclusion where I was removed from the executive and removed as standard bearer in Belize Rural North in 2014. Does not speak to any suspension thereafter. So there is no suspension to lift. And the Committee to Elect Arthur Saldiva and myself have written many letters. Not one, not two, not three, at least 6 letters to the chairman of the party and to the executive, seeking them to address the only resolution that exists, to make it clear that I was never suspended and I can certainly be qualified as a candidate in Belmopan. For
Are you can someone see if they're hearing us? Amira?
this is, after all, the first of its kind town hall event, and we may be experiencing some technical difficulties at this time. I am not sure. If you are watching me at this time and hearing me, can you indicate? Beautiful.
Yes, it's still on.
All right.
Okay. So Atta, back to our viewers. Moises is saying that these actions that we're seeing now is making people skeptical of the PUP, and they'll start to wonder if this is the same pre-2008 PUP. What are your sentiments about that?
Yes, well, again, as a member of the party, I certainly decry what is taking place. It has happened in other constituencies, not only Belmopan. But as I have said before, if the party cannot abide by its own constitution, if the trustees cannot abide by the constitution of the PUP, the question that invariably comes forward is, how can they be trusted with the constitution of Belize? We have seen so many abuses of the constitution of Belize by the present administration of the UDP. We have seen it where private property has been taken, and it seems to have been simply a charade to hustle money. We have seen where amendments have been made for no other purpose than to satisfy the greed of a few. So we don't want to go down that road. So certainly, the moves that are being made within the PUP right now can be interpreted the way that Mr. Solf is seeing it. It is not far-fetched to see things that way. I can only hope that those who have been entrusted with the responsibility to safeguard the party's legacy would understand what they are doing with it and reverse course. This is nothing that George Price would have ever envisioned to do. Certainly.
Mr. McFarland says, you said you were punished in 2014, so what exactly were you punished for then?
Well, they punished me for public allegations. That's what the resolution says. Let me read what it says. It says, the National Executive of the party convened on Wednesday, 27th August 2014 and discussed, among other things, the People's United Party Belize Royal North constituency, and in particular, the public allegations made against Arthur Saldiva. Public allegations. Now, what must be also remembered, back then, the then party leader encouraged me to settle. Settle, Arthur. Once you've settled this matter, you'll run. Settle the matter. I basically wound up with 30%, or a little less than 30% of my fees. But I settled the matter.
Malacro says, if the people of Belmopan want you to run or represent them, why are you killing yourself to be in a party that doesn't want you? Why not just run independent?
Well, I still have my health, Millicross. I don't think I'm dying yet. But to answer your question, I am a People's United Party member, and that membership comes with certain privileges and rights, just as I have a right as a Belizean under our constitution. I will not just willy-nilly abandon or abdicate my rights and privileges that I have earned. I have paid my dues. It's not about killing myself. It's about showing our people that I am not so quick to turn my back on what I've worked for more than 37 years.
Yeah, Miss Williams says she remembers that. Atta, where do you see the fight with John Saldivar? Why would you be a better representative than John?
John Saldivar and I share more than just a last name. We are both Fulbright scholars, but I'm the only Fulbright scholar in economics that have actually put forward a plan for the development of Belize and have a viable plan for the Belmopan's development. In John Saldivar's years coming back from school, he was, I believe, for a short stint, a public servant, maybe for 2 or 3 years, and the rest of the time before Mr. Kawich passed and he was able to win an election, he was a glorified gas station attendant down south for Mr. Dunker. So he has not had a very distinguished private sector existence. In fact, I believe that the first time John Saldivar owned his own home was when he became a minister of government. I have owned my own home long before that. So, as private citizens, with our education, I have acquitted myself much better than he has. But outside of that, John has become a tyrant. And our national anthem makes it very clear. No tyrant here linger. Despots must flee.
Mike Godoy says, what does the party constitution say about conventions? How do you qualify or be disqualified?
Well, Mike, your only qualification to be in a convention is to be a member of the People's United Party. That's your qualification, being a member. And that membership and your viability as a candidate is qualified by the criteria put forward on your application to run as a candidate. One being that you don't have a police record, which I don't have, and you're not a bankrupt, which I'm not. So those are the only criteria.
Steve says, stand ready to fight. Amira Smith says, John is cruel. And Moises Salt says, by the time BPP wins, Belize will have a 90% poverty rate. And Buddy Brown says, why don't you run with BPP?
Well, I have not reached that crossroad yet. I have to exhaust all possibilities in the present party I'm in. When I've completed that process, if it's not successful, I will consider other options, but not before. As I said, I'm a PUP. I intend to keep it that way.
Okay. Sophia Holder says the dog doesn't like politicians. Because the dog is, everybody's complaining about the dog in the background.
The dog is on watch for tyrants.
So, Atta, what do you see in the future for Belmopan? What would be your plan?
Well, Marissa, the plan has to be one to seek the expansion of Belmopan beyond the Belize River. We have to go further north because the city has become a bit constrained in its capacity to grow. There has to be an industrial component to Belmopan. We just cannot throw around the word city without having this community have all the benefits that should come with a city. The capacity to employ its people. a strong and vibrant local economy, multidimensional synergies that connect people and allow for greater participation in the economic life. When Belmopan was first conceived, George Price brought the public service here and public servants to live so that they were in a position where they could live close to where they work. And that was what made Belmopan successful in the past. But what has occurred is that Mr. Price also had an industrial component to Belmopan, but that industrial component was abandoned by those who came after, and it was never really fully developed. Because it was a known fact that the public service would not be able to absorb all the labor that Belmopan would produce over time. In fact, right now, what we have is a 20-80% ratio in terms of employment in the public service. Whereas when I was growing up as a boy in 1974, on through to my years up to high school in Belmopan, 80% of Belmopan residents had jobs in the public service or the government printers or the hospital. Today it's less than 20%, because most of the workers in the government service now come from out district, from different places. So there's widespread unemployment in Belmopan. So if we do not invest or create the atmosphere for private sector investment in industry, Belmopan will be having more serious problems going forward, because unemployment is rampant, and this is what is causing a rise in crime.
Christian Rivero wants to know what your stance on the LGBT community is. Why should an LGBT voter vote for you? Or do you even want the LGBT vote?
Well, people are people. Belizeans are Belizeans, whether they are heterosexual or homosexual. Again, I have no issue with the individual person. If I'm asked about what a person does, I will have an opinion. But at the end of the day, I respect people. So it's not a question of LGBT versus heterosexual. We are all Belizeans. And whatever right I have as a Belizean, it should be afforded across the board to all Belizeans. That's what I believe. But that doesn't mean I won't have an opinion.
Hector Silva says, please let me in. As the most senior PUP from 29th of September 1950, what are the reasons given for not accepting Atta or Andrews? Please, I need to know. Mr. Harris says, what is the future of the PUP? And Moises Salt is, weren't there mention of John with regards to Mason involvement with the pastor who was killed?
Exactly. And this is the situation. One of the platforms I'm running on is justice for people in Belmopan. There have been many unsolved murders in Belmopan. Certainly the Llewellyn Lucas murder is not one of them. We know exactly who is responsible in that regard. We are only hoping now that sufficient evidence exists for a conviction to be had. And I believe it does exist. So the question now is whether or not the competency exists to bring about the conviction. And I do believe that that also exists. So if that doesn't happen, then there is something else at play. And you, the smart viewers that are watching this program right now, would know what's at play. Because at the end of the day, it is too much of a coincidence that a young man, Llewellyn Lucas, who I grew up with in Belmopan, who John grew up with in Belmopan, who served as an altar boy at the Catholic Church with John, would wind up, after coming back home from New York, after being given assistance to get a job with John Saldiva's friend and business partner, would wind up having his head cut off after making queries about his mother's home that they were about to lose and what went on along in that situation. So I leave that for you, the very intelligent and insightful viewers of this town hall event, to draw your conclusions from. All I want in all of this is the ability to sit on a debate stage with John Saldiva at some point during this campaign, so that the questions that I am answering for you right now can be asked to him directly. Because we cannot entrust a person to lead our nation with such a question hanging over his head. We want to know, how much do you really know, John, about the demise of Llewellyn Lucas? What role did you play in it, if any? These are the questions we want to know. And I want to be able to sit across or stand across a podium and look you in the eye as you answer that question.
Mr. McFarland wants to know, what is your plan to stop land corruption in Belize?
Land corruption is rampant, we know. And here's the situation. We first need to have an audit, a comprehensive audit of the lands department. And that audit cannot be limited in scope. It has to be comprehensive. It has to impact every level, because we know from the bottom to the top in the lands department, they have been guilty. You see all this nonsense about public allegations? We have been hearing allegations recently coming from the Prime Minister of Belize in the House of Representatives, directed at the leader of the opposition. It's not me saying so. It's the Prime Minister saying so, and the leader of the opposition has not responded. I would like to respond for him, but I can't, because I was legal counsel at the Ministry of Natural Resources. You see, I know what went on at the ministry in my time. I tried my best to stop some of those abuses. In fact, I did reverse at least one that I can remember, involving a gentleman by the name of Jaime Rosado in Kikaka. And I would hope that those viewers from Kikaka who knows Mr. Jaime, who has the butane business in Kikaka, could talk to him about his key and his island. I don't think that Mr. Rosado has gotten his title as yet. But I will not go into any details about that right now. But suffice it to say, I did address it with the person who was responsible. And I remember his countenance on the phone. Couldn't hold it together. Couldn't hold it together at all. But I did fix that problem. But it came at a great cost to the people of Belize as well. But we'll get into that at a later date.
Mr. Wade says, what about Michelle Rodriguez, the wife of the former UDP minister who is accepted and is a UDP? Up until recently, she ran to run in the convention. And you and Andrews, who are long-standing supporters, are refused. What's your comment on that?
I think it's one of those things that I believe is self-explanatory. I decry it as again, we know what the situation is with Ms. Rodriguez. Melvin Hulse was kicked out of the UDP. Now, some may say he had become a truth teller. He was speaking truth to power at that time when he was kicked out. But we know that in terms of loyalty to the party, that has never been existent where Michelle Rodriguez is concerned. Suffice it to say, however, I'm not here to bash, because I'm not bitter about anything. All I want and all I've ever wanted was the opportunity to run against any comer in Belmopan. And I will get that chance. I'm sure of it.
Aria Lightfoot says, Arthur, now that you are experiencing the opposite end of arbitrary decisions from the PUP, what are your thoughts on requiring political parties to register as entities, have independent oversight and financial transparency, since political party members represent Belizeans in the National Assembly, form the governments, make financial decisions in Belize? What are your ideas?
I am for registration. I am for oversight. I have provided it on my own, and this is the reason why I'm here. This is the reason why I was targeted. You see, let me be clear. In 2013, sometime after the general election, after visiting a client of mine at the Hattieville prison, I was told of certain documents that were being destroyed. I went to the dump site and accessed those documents. As was told, they would be there. It was given to me, and I found them to be binders from the immigration department. The decision to go forward and make public what was given to me was not one that was supported widely in the People's United Party. In fact, I was made to do what I did on my own, and the evidence of that is clear on the news. You can always look in the archives of Channel 7 or Channel 5 to know that what I'm telling you is the truth. So by doing that on my own, as I had done the challenge to Marcus Pat on my own, these things put me in the crosshairs of very powerful people within the party. And as a result of that, I have been singled out for this kind of treatment. But I'm not taking this anymore. I will not just go quietly into that good night. There is going to be now a real challenge to this arbitrary behavior of those who believe they have ownership of the party. The party belongs to the people. The people are the party. And where the interests of the people and those who are its trustees conflict, it is the will of the people that must prevail. So here I am right now, telling you clearly that as a champion of the people, I will not back down.
He says, Mr. Wade says, but Arthur, please answer me. How can they refuse two long-standing supporters and accept a lady who was wearing a UDP shirt with her husband?
They can do it because they're not following the Constitution of the People's United Party, Mr. Wade. They have thrown the Constitution aside. This is not the PUP. This is not a PUP decision. This is a UDP light. Do you know of Coke Classic, Coke Zero, and Coke Light? They are all the same Coke, just different taste. Some are less tasted than others. So you have the UDP, and presently we have UDP Light at Queen Street. So we have no problem as true PUPs to challenge UDP Light. It's time for us to look very keenly at changing the administration of the People's United Party in Queen Street.
Let's see. Victoria Clark says, you have a big heart and you don't know how to say no to people, and you're always helping in all kinds of ways possible. Mr. Mendez wants to know why an executive body should determine who will run in an area. We of the area should decide that. Let us give power to the voters and not to the people, because they do not have the idea on the areas. What is your take on that?
I agree with you wholeheartedly, Mr. Mendez. This is what I believe would have happened, especially in a constituency as intellectually blessed as Belmopan. We are not the typical constituency where the grassroots are uninformed. Belmopan is a community and a constituency informed from the grassroots up. We are aware, we are alive, we think, and we speak out.
Mr. Wade said, she's Flipping's wife, so it's crazy. What can Johnny say in his press briefing about that? This is an entire joke. Otta, how can we address the Constitution in a way that would not hurt the party? Because I think there's a lot of people who are worried that the steps after this may very well bring the entire Dolly House down, for lack of a better term.
Well, Marissa and viewers, if it is the well-being of the party that the trustees of the party have in mind, then the right and honorable thing for Mr. Bresenio to do after making such a debacle is to resign. He should resign. In the interest of the party, John Bresenio needs to resign.
Have you, Mike Godoy wants to know if you've requested a meeting with the National Executive.
I have. I had expected it to be today. But they had an emergency meeting of the executive without me. Even though I had written them on the... I forgot my 4x4. but I had written the executive of the party on the 17th of May. 17th of this month. And I wrote them again on the 20th of May, requesting a meeting with the executive. And they had the meeting with the executive today, the 29th of May. But they didn't inform me or invite me, but I was a topic of the discussion. So here's the situation. Natural justice requires that you hear both sides. You're talking about allegations from 4 years ago, man. But of course they will want to use my town hall today as justification for the decision that they made hours ago. Because this is the way justice seems to work in Belize and now in the PUP. Do you understand? That you make a decision and then you justify it after the fact. Thank you. Borrowing this 4x4 for somebody else.
Rosemarin says, do you believe that as leaders, the 3 candidates who have been approved should call a press conference and insist that the party hold a convention with all the 5 candidates?
If they have any honor and integrity about themselves, they should. Because they know that there is no real reason for the disqualifications to take place. And this party is more than just personalities and personal differences. It's about the interests of the people, not about the interests of the few. If we are going to be a party of special interest, then change the name from People's United Party to the Special Interest Party.
Mr. Castillo says, could it be that the lady is being used to run in a convention that she has no chance of winning to lend legitimacy to the party's preferred candidate who is the weakest? This will ensure a victory for John Saldivar. Could this move be a deliberate plan?
It appears that this is so. It appears that the trustees of our party, the chairman, the party leader, the secretary general, and the legal counsel have concocted a plot to ensure John Saldivar remains a representative of the people in Belmopan. They are actually co-signing to maintaining a siege of Belmopan. Because at the end of the day, man, please listen. Here we have a man who is the Minister of National Security at a time when Belize is the least secure in its history. Guatemalans coming across the border with impunity, pillaging and raping our natural resources. They are seeking to put us up to the ICJ, lockstep, so that Guatemala can claim 53% of Belize. Both parties, the UDP and UDP Light, saying yes to the ICJ. Of course, it begs the question. They are trying to ensure that we have full complicity, that there is nobody to challenge these decisions that are being made, that are certainly not being made in the best interest of the people of Belize, certainly not being made in the best interest of the People's United Party supporters. That's the only way we can explain it. There's a plot.
Mr. Sol says, justice has no party. The problem I have with this is not against the PUP. The problem I have is that it is unfair and unjust to deny anyone from running with them, doing anything that violates the constitution of the party or the country. Too many times we have seen laws, rules, procedures thrown out the window. This is one of the reasons we now have the most corrupt and oppressive prime minister who's surrounded by a bunch of non-thinkers. Let democracy reign. Let the people decide.
I second that motion, Moses.
Mr. Silva is saying hello again. Ms. Harris says, tell it like it is, Arthur. The PUP must get their act together.
As a boy at 7, and I want the viewers to understand, right? When it rains in Belmopan, we have these deep drains. And when it rains, there's a plant that grows that we call morass. And as boys, we take off our shoes and we slip and slide on the morass as soon as the rain stops. Well, one day I was slipping and sliding in the drain, and I saw this man walking, coming down the sidewalk towards where I was in the drain, picking up paper. I went home to my mother and I said, Mom, Rick and Dev had some new people, well dressed. So my mom says, no son, that man doesn't work for Rick and Dev, that man is a premier. I went back in the drain the next day, me and my friends, and I saw the man again. This time I didn't stay in the drain, I came out and I approached him. I said, sir, my mom says that you're a premier. The man says, your grandfather is Norman Gladden. Your mom is a nurse. Your dad works at the printer's. Son, can you read? I said, yes, sir, I could read. Took out a book from his breastplate, his breast pocket. How We Are Governed. And I read the cover and I read the inside forward page. Said, your dad made this book. You can have it. And signed it, George Cadle Price. Had that book until the staple rotted out. Said, stay in school, son. You'll be one of those who helped develop Belize. That's why I became a PUP. From that day, it was as if I was the only person that mattered in the world. I have met other leaders of Belize since. I have met other leaders of the People's United Party since. I've met and I've known John Briceño, and I can tell you, I know and I've known George Price. John Briceño is no George Cadle Price.
Darren Sully says, Ata Saldiva for Belmopan. So, Ata, do you, Amira Smith says, this is yet another moment where I am proud to be your sister. You are willing to reach out and be of service to your people. We are Belmopanese and your heart is with Belmopan. Ata, what do you think about the crime situation in Belmopan?
Well, we are sitting on a powder keg. We have MS-13, 18th Street gang, running rampant and unchecked all across Belmopan. That is not to mention as well that we also have local born and local grown situations in the capital itself. But here's a problem with MS-13, viewers. I want you to appreciate that this is a gang that is tearing up El Salvador, that is tearing up Honduras. And with our limited resources and law enforcement personnel, and with the limitations in investigative capacity, if we don't get a handle on this, we're going to have a very serious problem in the not too distant future. The crime situation in Belmopan has to be addressed in 3 ways. First, we have to create the atmosphere for the unemployment situation to be abated. It means that we have to reduce taxation on the private sector to allow for more jobs to be created in Belmopan so that we can drain the swamp of unemployment. 2, we have to ensure that our young, especially those between the ages of 10 and 18, are in school. 3, we have to have consistent patrolling in all our communities, all 6 communities of Belmopan. Not this little spot patrol that goes on and comes off and goes on and comes off, because at the end of the day, without consistency and our law enforcement personnel knowing the people in the neighborhoods, we will have problems, because we have enclaves in Belmopan. Enclaves where persons can blend in and disappear. And this is what's taking place. When our residents go to work or travel outside of Belmopan, their homes are now vulnerable. Long gone are the days when you could leave your doors open. I come from a Belmopan where we had no fences, where we routinely slept with our doors open, where a child can stop at any home and get something to eat. We don't have that anymore. I come from a Belmopan where you could leave your bicycle at the tennis court, go home and eat, come back and still find your bike. We don't have that anymore. And we don't have that because there is widespread neglect in Belmopan in relation to the air representative who has the responsibility for national security and is doing nothing in Belmopan to make us more secure.
Miss Williams is saying if we're seeing that the party isn't giving us any good candidates at all. What is your take on that, Hata?
Marissa, I believe that the People's United Party has the capacity and the personnel to put forward a roster of candidates that is capable of defeating the United Democratic Party at the polls. However, with the way that the process of choosing candidates have gone and is going, we are doing ourselves and our people a disservice. As I said, the buck stops at the top. As they say, the fish rots from the head. And right now, that is the problem. The head is rotting in the PUP.
Alfonso Harris Jr. says, firstly, we must create a true police force without corruption, and then a true law-abiding force. I think that
Here.
the truth of the matter is that I think that politics plays too much of a role inside getting those people who are joining the police force at this time. What is your what is your idea on that?
I agree. The police top brass and the position of the commissioner has been tainted over the years because the political directorate seems to have a stranglehold on persons being promoted to those positions. As a result of that, it has undermined the morale of the ranks. So there is no order and discipline throughout the ranks of the police department. What we have is an armed and legally sanctioned gang carrying guns legally. And we cannot forget situations that have occurred in Belize City where there have been widespread knowledge that law enforcement personnel were involved in extrajudicial killings in Belize. These things should not happen in a democratic country, and I decry that fact. There is a need right now for what I would term a National Bureau of Investigation. A National Bureau of Investigation that is manned by competent persons taken from the sixth form and tertiary level institutions who are sent abroad specifically to study forensic science, investigative techniques, so that we can actually have human resource that can apply technology to solving crimes. The greatest deterrent to crime is the capacity of the law enforcement personnel not only to catch the criminal, but to secure convictions. It is a shame that in the legal fraternity, whenever you hear that there is a confession in a capital case, it is a signal that that case is one that we will win without question. Because whenever there's a confession in Belize, what invariably happens is that brute force and ignorance is what is applied, as opposed to any scientific method to extract information.
Donny Salazar is asking you, do you see traffic in Belmopan as a problem? And if you do, what would you do to fix it?
Well, yes, traffic in Belmopan is a problem. One of the ways we'll fix the traffic situation is to complete the Almond Boulevard. That's what they call it, between Huang Mart and I think Huang Mart and Tropigas, one of those places, that boulevard that comes there. We want to bring it all the way in to join up with the Tiger Tongue area, so that you can alleviate the congestion that goes on the Ring Road area and on that Constitution Drive area after 5. But these are things that I would certainly want to address more comprehensively another time when I'm actually looking at that. George Price Boulevard as well needs to be addressed, because it gives us another outlet to the George Price Highway. Now we have seen where newly constructed streets have gone from foundation to pavement in areas where it was really not necessary, and areas where it's not having the impact on traffic flow. But again, having the George Price Boulevard fully paved and serviceable would alleviate a lot of the congestion coming into Belmopan between 7 and 8 a.m. and leaving Belmopan between 5 and 6 p.m. Around these times we have problems in certain areas because there is a build-up of traffic in that regard. I want to mention, while we're on that topic as well, one of the things that would spur Belmopan's economic growth exponentially is to partner with Kaya South Division in inviting the private sector to build a 4-lane highway connecting Orange Walk to Roaring Creek via the Valley of Peace community. Once we are able to reduce the distance, the effective distance for getting to Orange Walk from 8 to 2 miles that it now exists going through what is the existing roadway, to the 37 miles that exists between Roaring Creek and Orange Walk, we would have Orange Walk being part of the effective market for businesses in Belmopan, and we would have greater interaction with the north. We know right now that Santander is using its location and its ability to infiltrate the local market with sugar because they are still locked off greatly from Orange Walk. That is undermining our cane farmers in the north. And we are not really getting any real benefit from Santander. They underpay their workers. They have them working under arduous conditions. A lot of things have to be looked at down there with Santander. But opening up that road, making it a toll road, and allowing for greater traffic to come in from Orange Walk to Belmopan and vice versa would give us the capacity to bring in more private sector jobs into the Belmopan area, which could again alleviate some of our problems with unemployment, and it can again go towards reinvigorating the local economy in Belmopan so that there is more to be had and more prosperity for all.
And Mr. McFarland says, utter corruption ignored or excused on any side and for any reason will surely manifest itself eventually on the other side. What do you think?
I agree. We have to root it out. Now, the thing about it is this. We need to have UNCAC be put in place. And we need to give it teeth. It cannot be lip service or window dressing. We have seen what's taking place in Guatemala and how the Guatemalan population is putting the political elite in that country in check. There are certainly great candidates in Belize for that to happen with. Not to mention John Saldiva himself. How could we forget the company Mythion that John created when he was first given the Ministry of National Security, where he was selling phone cards to police and BDF, basically using his position as a minister of government for private gain. All these things are documented. I'm not breaking any news here, but that is in direct contravention of Section 121 of the Constitution, the Code of Conduct. No, man, they are making that the PUP executive is going on public allegations made against me that I know for sure I have no legal fault in. I was a fool, yes, by not having a signed agreement with Miss Cowie because we went to school together and I was treating her as a friend. Suffice it to say, I have learnt my lesson the hard way. But I did nothing criminal.
Mr. Banner says, police don't prosecute cases. It's the responsibility of the Office of Public Prosecution to examine and return case files that's incomplete. Poor prosecution rate is a prosecution problem, not an investigative problem. Ms. Aria says, police department needs to become independent of politicians like Barbados. How can police effectively police when someone can run to their favorite politician to undermine investigations? Mr. Izagiri says, totally agree with you. John Briceño is a far cry from being anywhere near having the level of worthiness to lead a nation as the Right Honorable GCP possessed and exemplified during the 4 decades plus of political leadership he graced us with. And what makes it worse is that John Saldiva nor Patrick Farber are anywhere close to demonstrating they are competent to do as well. John. In fact, there seems to be no one that truly inspires the masses as potential leaders with similar qualities as Mr. George Price. Our country's future is up for grabs and the PUDP is playing right into the hands of the Guatemalans by seemingly forcing us to go before the ICJ. UNCAC believes is a tiger without claws or teeth.
Yeah, sad. Sad but true. Sad but true. And on that ICJ issue, Marissa, you see, Roscoe Pound, a famous legal scholar, once said that there is no law until the words are uttered by the judge. So until the judge makes his decision, there is no law. That's the realist view of jurisprudence. When we deal with the ICJ and international law, we have to really take the realist view, because it is not strictly based on legal principle. So this idea that we are going to take the Belize Guatemala question, which is, there's no real Belize Guatemala question at all. There's an Anglo-Guatemalan dispute that started in 1859 after Britain and Guatemala believed that Article 7 of the Treaty of 1859 was not carried out, and they each blamed each other for that not happening. And as a result, Guatemala is saying that whatever they engendered under that agreement to recognize, they will not do it anymore. Well, I agree, Belize has a very strong case. I agree it is ironclad and airtight. But I agree it's also stupid to think that by going to the ICJ, we are going to come out unscathed, that nothing is going to happen to us. And I believe that even if it's 1 inch, it's too much. So we shouldn't go. The legal arguments are sound, but you cannot account for the judge. If anybody who is pushing for a yes vote of the ICJ can come forward and tell me they know what the judge will do, let's do it. But I know you can't, because we've seen, man, we just sit in the great United States with Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby was accused of things that happened 40 years ago, where they had no real evidence, but they found him guilty. Right now, Morgan Freeman, there are so many things, so many examples, but just to stick to what we're talking about here with the ICJ, just look at the Grenada case, where the United States invaded Grenada and Grenada sought restitution and got nothing. There are so many cases in international law that we have seen where the mighty nations have gotten their way. And Belize Guatemala is not about Belize Guatemala alone. There are big countries with special interests in Guatemala that's pushing this agenda. And we are going lockstep because we have compromised leaders who cannot stand up for Belize. And they want you to believe that they are doing their best for us, when in truth and in fact they are selling us out.
Mr. Mushtam says, winning is standing up for what you believe in. So if not allowed to run with the party, then make sure you put your name on a ballot and let the people decide. That's what I will do. It feels comforting to stand up as a leader and not as a follower.
Hear, hear.
Mr. McFarlane says, don't go there, Arthur. But I'm not sure what he's referring to. I believe it's the Guatemalan claim. He said, oh, Cosby was damn well guilty.
I'm not fighting Bill's fight, trust me. He didn't pay me to do that. But I would just say this, a black man in 1960 doing those things to a white woman, that's real sketchy. I don't know.
What is your take on cost of living going up? Right? That's a big thing for everybody, and as a single mom, I know that there's a lot of people out there that can testify that every week you budget and then you rebudget and rebudget again, and you're still not seeing how, I mean, you're at the bottom of the budget now and you just can't see how to make it, and the cost keeps going up and keeps going up.
Well, my take on it is this. We have not invested sufficiently in our productive sector. As a result of that, we have become an overly dependent on imports. We are getting inferior goods at high prices, and oppressive taxation has not made it any better. Basically, what has happened, Marissa, as we have advanced in time and as technology has gotten better, we have actually regressed. I remember days gone by when down south we had Nestle Corporation in Belize producing citrus quarters that were canned, and we could get those citrus quarters, whether it was grapefruit or oranges, in a little light syrup, and have that as a family. We used to have it on Sundays with milk and what have you, but we don't have that anymore. We don't have the capacity to do it anymore in Belize. We had the situation with rice, where our rice industry was actually undermined by the government of Belize by allowing Guatemalans to bring rice into Belize. Then we had the situation of Jack Chalwa bringing rice from Guyana, when we have the capacity to produce our own rice. So we have actually undermined the productive sector, gone away from investing in it, have basically yielded up to special interests, because even in the banana and citrus industry, when the banana industry was suffering because of this issue that Mr. Zabane was experiencing down south, the government of Belize left him just left him on his own. Instead of stepping in, putting in a receiver to allow for the banana industry to be rescued and 60% to be saved, they let that entire acreage of banana go to waste. Right now, Mr. Zabane has wiped out all his banana now. So, whereas we had the capacity to produce sufficient banana to not only export in a meaningful way, we barely have banana now to suffice the local demand for it. All this is happening under this present administration. But what's even more pressing and causing the cost of living to go up even more is the situation with gas prices. I mean, it's like every other day gas prices are going up, and for one reason and one reason only. They have squandered over $450 million worth of Petro-Caribbean money, and in order to keep the government moving, they are now taxing the heck out of the Belizean people to get back what they've wasted. That's untenable. We don't have to be in this position. There are certain things that can be done to spur the economy in Belize that will not require us mortgaging the store. The private sector has to be given the reins to drive the economy. We have to stop picking winners and losers in the private sector as well. What government needs to do is to set the agenda for development. Invite the private sector to come in and push on a particular vision for development, where export is the focus. And it should not be merely the export of raw material, like exporting banana or exporting mango or exporting raw, unrefined goods. We need to start to look at value-added stuff, and we need greater integration into Central America through our infrastructure. There's this big hue and cry about all the investment in infrastructure that has taken place over the past 10 years. But that's a lie. It's a facade. What has been done is cosmetic. In Belmopan, what has been done is cosmetic. We have seen existing streets that have been given resurfacing, but nothing more. In fact, I was just on Santa Maria Street. Santa Maria Street, there is a piece of it that has been dug up and not repaired. But for the most part, 90% of that street is the same street that was built by Parling in 1970 as most of the streets in the capital. They are the same original streets that were built by Parling in 1970, and they are still holding up. But we have brand new streets that were cemented in the last 3 years that are breaking up across Belmopan. And none of those streets, none of those contractors that built those streets came from Belmopan. If you could count on one hand how many of the workers that built those streets came from Belmopan. All of them came from other communities outside of Belmopan. But we have a representative in Belmopan who is one of the most powerful members of cabinet, who has totally neglected the needs of the people of Belmopan. So yes, cost of living is going up, and most of it is artificial because of the fact that the government of Belize has not been governing effectively and has abandoned investment in the productive sector. And as a result of that, they have been heavily taxing fuel, and taxing fuel, which is a capital good for everything, causes these goods to rise in price in the stores.
Ariel Lightfoot says, I would like you to comment on Guatemalans who are given Belizean citizenship against our very constitution that will be allowed to vote, while the diaspora will be kicked off due to residency requirements. Isn't that also a means of empowering Guatemala while effectively undermining the born Belizeans' voting power?
Aria, I don't believe that Belizeans in the diaspora are being kicked off. Now, there is this re-registration that's taking place, but I do know this. Re-registration took place in 1998 or 1997 before, and we still had plane loads of Belizean Americans voting in Queen Square and other constituencies. What is required is for our Belizean people to come back home and make sure that they are registered on the rolls. I don't agree with Guatemalans voting in Belizean elections. I don't agree with Guatemalans carrying Belizean citizenship. There is a constitutional prohibition for this, but again, the constitution on this matter has been ignored. Doesn't make it right. It is a requirement now for the Belizean population to rise up to ensure that those Guatemalans who have been given citizenship, that it's revoked, because at the end of the day it's unconstitutional. There is no way that you can ratify an unconstitutional decision. I think that was what Mr. Barrow said the last time he had a press conference on the issue. So he himself has agreed that Guatemalans who have Belizean citizenship cannot really have it because they cannot renounce their Guatemalan citizenship. The curious thing that he said in that press conference was that he was checking with his Guatemalan counterpart on the issue. Why would a Guatemalan need to tell you, the Prime Minister of Belize, who can be a citizen of your country? Unless you have signed some agreement with Guatemala. I mean, really, go back and check the tape. Dean Barrow said that he will check with his Guatemalan counterpart, and in checking with his Guatemalan counterpart, they told him that Guatemalans cannot renounce their citizenship. He said that with his own mouth.
What do you think will be the benefit in the re-registration drive? Do you think it will happen, and what is your take on it?
Let me tell you this. We are going to have big problems in Belmopan because the two candidates that are presently being made to run in Belmopan are green. They have no idea how to manage a registration machinery and what to look for and how to deal with the shenanigans that certainly will come to bear when John Saldiva seek to put back those voters that he has brought from Kaya South to vote in Belmopan. It is not a simple thing. It's not an easy thing to stay on top of. And the People's United Party is doing itself a disservice by putting these people forward at this particular time. If I were a trustee of the party, I would have put the conventions after the registration period. But let me say that these people who are there seem to be wiser than me and have elected to do it before. but they are doing a disservice, because what will happen really and truly is that the re-registration exercise potentially will not yield the result that it should have, which is to ensure that persons vote in the constituencies where they live. If there is no oversight, if there is not sufficient oversight at the electoral office, and if there are not enough field workers monitoring what's taking place in the villages, we are going to have a lot of village residents once again being on the voter rolls in Belmopan. We know that that is John Saldiva's tactic to hold on to this division. He does not trust the Belmopan electorate, so he imports voters from outside heavily, and he will seek to do it again. So the new list will be much like the old list if we have Michelle Rodriguez and Oscar Mira being the only persons there from the PUP, and Wiseman Pat, the only persons in the PUP looking after this very important exercise.
What do you feel about the ratio for the ratio of voters to area representatives? One of the big problems I have seen in the past is that some constituencies boast 10,000 plus voters, while other constituencies have 3,000-4,000 voters. What do you feel that does to the country as a whole?
Well, it undermines the effectiveness of representation. Many people are left out and not represented well. We have some divisions that have less than 3,000 people in it. And in the city, for instance, we have some very small constituencies, Queen Square, Mesopotamia, Fort George, to name a few. And then we have some very huge constituencies like Belmopan, which has 10,175 voters. We have Port Loyola, that has in excess of 9,000 voters. Kaya West, Stann Creek West, Toledo West. All these constituencies have more than the constitutional limit.
What is the constitutional limit?
The constitutional limit is 5,000 voters per constituency.
So
But here's the kicker, and here's what we have to also appreciate. A lot of the numbers may not be real, because what happens is that from time to time people register and move, but don't move their vote. And this is the reason why the re-registration exercise is important. Because, for example, if you are transferred from your job that you may have been living in Belmopan when you registered, but you were moved, let's say, to Belize City, and you're living there, but you haven't moved your registration, you are still on the voter roll in Belmopan. And there are many people like that. As a result of that, the voter roll in the constituency is inflated, but it doesn't really reflect the persons living there. So this is the reason why this re-registration exercise is important, so that we can get the true understanding of who lives in Belmopan and who can vote in Belmopan, and we could have a more comprehensive understanding of the size of the constituency in reality. Right now it's 10,175, which is 5,175 voters above the constitutional limit. So there are 2 constituencies in Belmopan right now.
do you think we'll have redistricting before the elections?
Well, if I was the candidate against John Saldiva, we'd definitely get redistricting, because he wouldn't want to give me the benefit of having the peripheral voters on my side. But without me, I don't see that happening.
Pedro Cruz says, hey, all you are doing is nice and dandy and I support you, but talking is cheap and you don't depend on the voters to come out and fight your cause. If there was a prize given for the people that talk, the most Belize would win. You are walking alone, and who will bell the cat? Who is paying the piper? Don't trust the voters. They will hang you out to dry, my friend.
Well, again, no movement anywhere in the world ever started with the masses, Pedro. When Gandhi started his march to the sea to protest the salt tax. He started his walk alone. When Rosa Parks sat on the bus, it wasn't all the people on the bus, it was only her who sat. And that started a movement. Movements are started by individuals. The cause and the worthiness of the cause is what inspires support. My cause is a cause for democracy and a cause for justice. I believe we can support that, can't we?
Zoning laws in Belmopan. What Belmopan, from when we were growing up, I think we had a healthy zoning law. You had residences in one area, businesses in another. Nobody had a problem with walking to the government offices or to the bank or to anywhere. Now you're seeing the mixture of stores, shops, restaurants, even nightclubs inside residential areas. What is your view on that, and how would we be able to maybe take us back to what Belmopan used to be?
Well, as I said, what we have to first do is look at moving the boundary of Belmopan beyond the Belize River to get more space so that we can reorganize the city. In its present construct, given what has taken place in terms of the abandonment of the master plan, we cannot reorganize within this present structure. We want to give Belmopan the ability to enhance its tourism potential. Hence, moving beyond the other side of the river is key to doing that. Once we are able to do that, then we can put in place an entertainment district. We can then put in place a commercial district, proper commercial district, and we can put in place an industrial district. These things are necessary. What we are having right now is a total breakdown. There was a time, and it was not too long ago, when Mars Disco Den was the only nightclub in Belmopan. A lot of younger viewers don't even know of Mars Disco Den, which was right out there by the Shell gas station. It was on the outskirts of town. On the inner part of Belmopan, we had Hilltop. I remember back in the day going and listening to Richie Lopez and the Poolside Band. But Hilltop could only operate up until 10 p.m. because it was close to a residential area. You had junior school, Hilltop, tennis court, and then on the left-hand side you had, I believe it's Trinity Boulevard, and the residents at Trinity Boulevard. So they couldn't operate up to midnight. At 10 p.m. they had to close down. So if you wanted to party after that time, you go to Mars Disco Den, which was on the outskirts by the gas station. We have to go back to that kind of organization, because ultimately residents should not be made to suffer the nuisance of noise up until 2, 3:30, and not only noise. We have seen where violence have accompanied these nightclubs. We've had at least 5 murders at the La Cabana area, which is tied to Primrose Street, Sultana Street, and I think Floriana Street in the Las Flores area. I'm not sure if Floriana. If I got that name wrong, forgive me. But residents have complained of the fights, shootings that take place, and the noise that take place as a result of the music, loud music, at night. We have to address these things, and the only way to do it is to create the space for these businesses to exist in an area where it is safe and conducive to that type of activity. All these little bars that are springing up in Mayamopan and Salvapan and San Martin are untenable as well, because you have young children. They are so close to schools where young children go, and they are selling alcohol all day, all hours of the day. So you have public drunkenness and disorderly behavior during prime time of the day. Not a good example set for children. It's causing the breakdown in discipline, because when children see adults sleeping in the drains in their urine and feces, it doesn't lend for respect to authority and their elders, and we cannot have this continue. It's one of the things that's contributing to the breakdown of discipline in our society, and we have to look at it seriously and address it.
Daniel Kwan says, in all honesty, as someone who has grown up watching politics and realizing neither political party is looking out for the greater good of the people, seen many great people not allowed to run or were voted out because voters were bought, what reason is there to keep trying in a democratic system?
Our country and our people. I cannot give up on Belize. As I explained before, I'm a Fulbright scholar. The United States government paid me to go to school. I was offered to go back. I was offered a green card to live. I refused it. This is my home. I am not leaving it for nobody. The only way I'm leaving Belize is horizontally. I'm not walking out, running out, or flying out. This is my home. And I'm here to ensure that it gets better, not worse.
Somebody's asking, what does Wiseman Pat bring to the PUP?
With all due respect, I think we'd have to ask Wiseman Pat that question.
I'm sorry. I have to laugh. Atta, the questions have slowed down because I guess we're getting close to that time when we are going to be signing off. But what would be your take on how the PUP can move forward to make the voters feel like they're in a position to take over leadership? I have heard so many people complain that at the end of the day, they're not sure that if voting in PUP would make any sense. They don't see a PUP that they trust, and they're seeing the same faces, they're seeing the same people there, and now we're looking at them locking out the new faces. So what do you feel would be a way for us to move forward as a party?
Well, there are many talented young people in the PUP, and in order for the party to move forward, those persons need to be given the opportunity to have not only their voices heard, but the opportunity to direct policy within the party. You see, we cannot have a party of people who seek to be representatives but behave like sheep out of fear. That is not a reassuring prospect for any voter, to have a person who is a representative who really cannot represent you because they're scared to speak on your behalf if they feel it is going to be unpopular with leadership. Leadership cannot exist in an atmosphere of insecurity. Insecurity paralyzes leadership. And this is one of the things that has brought us to where we are. I believe that if the youth of the PUP were given effective voice, that insecurity would be reduced, if not eliminated. We need to go back to the root, the foundation, and stand on principle, democratic principles, which is to inspire and engender debate, meaningful debate on the issues, to address the issues of justice in an objective manner, to ensure that those who depend on the party and its ability to function properly are given every assurance that their voice will be heard and entertained. Right now, as it stands, it's as if the ears of the party are closed to those who want it to live up to its ideals. It cannot be that way. We cannot be operating like the UDP. One other thing I want to say, Marissa, because here's the situation. I am tired, as I know most Belizeans are tired, of listening to House debates, meetings of the House of Representatives, where you cannot even understand at the end of the day what is being addressed, because it delves into these frivolous issues of personal attacks. After a House debate, especially when you're debating the budget, we should know what percentage of the GDP the Kaya district accounts for, what percentage of the GDP the Stan Creek district accounts for, what percentage of the GDP Corozal accounts for, and what we are getting as a percentage from the budget by district. We don't get that from our debate in the House. Everything is done to obscure the facts. It is as if we are being fed a reality TV program with B stars and D stars. That's not what governance is about. My fight is to elevate the debate. I am here and I'm not going anywhere, because the people of Belmopan deserves to know who they are electing, and they need to have a reason why they will elect him or her. We deserve it, and I'm here to give it to you.
The questions have stopped, so if you don't have any closing statements.
Well, let me thank you, Marissa, for assisting me in hosting this first of its kind online town hall. I believe we covered the questions that were asked.
Yes.
No filters. We shall do it again some other time. I do believe that others should take up the challenge of making themselves open to the voters and the people in a very candid way, the way I have, and let democracy reign. Thank you. Good night. Until we meet again.
Good night.